Today's episode is sponsored by the Meriwether Council's Etsy training course, a video training series that teaches Etsy sellers the exact steps to a more visible, profitable, and enjoyable Etsy experience. For more information, visit meriwethercouncil.com. And now, here's the show. Welcome to episode 76 of the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today we're talking about illustration and self-publishing with my guest, Jenean Morrison. Jenean Morrison is a surface and textile designer, a painter, and the artist and publisher behind a popular series of self-published coloring books for adults, first published in 2012. Her coloring books have been published by traditional publishers in Japan, Italy, France, Brazil, and Turkey, and there are currently more than 1 million of her books in print on newsstands across North America. Jenean's books have reached the Amazon bestseller lists in both Italy and the United States. Her artwork has been licensed for use on rugs, fabrics, including free spirit fabrics, stationery, and scrapbook kits, and her paintings are currently on display in 3 Las Vegas hotels. Earlier this year, Jenean was one of 16 artists hand-selected to participate in Adobe's Make It on Mobile Summit, a 2-day hands-on immersive exploration of creativity on mobile devices, held at the Cooper Hewitt Museum in New York. Jenean's bright and colorful studio is located in the Cooper Young Historic District in Memphis, Tennessee. Jenean Morrison, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I want to start in kind of an unusual place. So back in 2002, I think, you were a contestant on a game show.
Yes, I was.
Okay. And the show is called The Weakest Link, which actually used to be a British show. I saw it in England way back, I don't know, maybe in the early 2000s. And then there was like an American version for a while. So you were a contestant and you won.
I did, yes.
Oh my goodness. So I stumbled upon this video last night on YouTube while I was doing some research about you for this podcast. And it was totally amazing, especially because the contestant that you won against got out on a question about tweed.
Yeah, I know. I think that's so funny.
It was hilarious.
Yeah, it was a great experience. It was really fun, and I got asked to do it. I went to an audition here in Memphis, and then I went to the show. And I actually, from the time I got accepted, it was 3 weeks until the time we recorded the show, and I just studied every bit of trivia and facts and everything that I could. So I really studied hard to win that.
Oh my goodness. It's so cool. So, okay. So you won $8,750.
I did. Yes.
And you split the winnings in half. And this is another thing I thought was so interesting. So tell us what you did with the 2 halves of the winnings.
Well, I probably at the time thought I should have paid off debt or something like that, credit cards, student loans. But instead, I took half of the money and I bought my first iMac. And then I took the other, and also some accessories to go with that. And then I took the other half and I bought one of those trivia machines that you used to see sitting on bars. I don't know if they're there as much now because people have their iPhones to play games on. But in 2002, I was working downtown on Beale Street in a restaurant, and I took half the money and I invested in one of these trivia machines. It had trivia and all kinds of different games on there. And people would just sit at the bar and feed that machine quarters day and night, from the whole time that we were open. And I split the money with my boss who owned the restaurant and let me put the machine in there. We split it. But it was really cool. It was my first experience with passive income. The income that I started getting from the machine, and eventually I got a couple more machines, allowed me to work less. And it was just a great first sort of entrepreneurial thing to do.
Yeah, I know. And it's so funny that you said that that was your first experience with passive income, because that was the first thing I thought. I was like, you know what? That's the ticket, right? And so really a lot of what we're going to talk about today is about passive income in a lot of different ways. And so I thought that was a great place to start. And so I want to kind of back up a little bit. You grew up, I think, in Memphis as well, or maybe just outside?
Oklahoma.
Oh, you grew up in Oklahoma. Okay. And your mom was an artist as well. And it sounds as though like she was really talented, like really skillful at drawing especially. And I just wondered what that was like for you, kind of coming up with your mom being so good at drafting and at drawing, and sort of how you felt as an artist yourself.
Well, I felt inferior. I was inspired to see what she was doing. I thought it was amazing, but I just felt like I would never be that good. Even today, she's so good. She will just look at something and sketch it like nobody's business. And I'm so impressed with all the stuff that she does. So growing up, I was really impressed and inspired, but also like I think it gave me a very close-minded view of what art could be. I didn't consider my doodles and things like that like worthy almost at the time. I grew up in the 70s and 80s in Oklahoma, and there wasn't a lot of, I guess, it was a small town. We didn't have art programs or anything like that. I made a lot of art, but there wasn't a lot of encouragement. I think at that time, no one was really thinking that, especially in a small town in Oklahoma, you just weren't encouraged to go be an artist to make your living.
So after you sort of were growing up and you kind of thinking that maybe art wasn't really a career, maybe it was just something that you could do, and maybe you couldn't do it as well as your mom. So maybe that was also a sign it wasn't a career, sort of some insecurity there. So then you went to college and you went to the University of Memphis. What did you study?
Communications.
Okay. So you didn't have an undergraduate major in art. You studied although, communications comes in handy later, but yeah. So, and then you graduated. What did you think you might do, if, as a job, sticking around in Memphis?
Yeah, I didn't even know. I didn't pick a major with an idea of a job. I sort of picked a major with something that I was interested in. In the communications field, there were all of these classes about radio and television programming, and I was interested in that. And so that was sort of why I did that. I waited tables throughout college, and then when I graduated, I just kept waiting tables. I didn't even look for a job. I was just kind of set and content and did like a lot of people do when you're waiting tables and you're sort of making good money. I never looked for like a real job.
Right. Okay. So you were doing that. You went on this game show, and then you started making a little bit of passive income. And then actually through the restaurant, you kind of found art again.
I did. So I had waited tables and bartended for years, and I really got tired of it. I was getting irritable. It was a rough life. The place that I worked in stayed open until 5 a.m. So it was really long nights, serving alcohol and coming home at 6 or 7 a.m. after the restaurant closed. And I eventually got moved up into the office. So I started counting the money and doing the bookkeeping and things like that, which I really like. It was kind of like a big puzzle every morning trying to figure everything out. But they started letting me design the menus. The owner had a few different restaurants, and he let me design the menus and the flyers when bands would come. And I thought, this is awesome. Like, I could do this, full time. And there was something that we had to have done. I can't remember what it was now, but we had to hire an outside graphic designer to do the work. And one of my duties was paying the bills, and I saw where we paid this outside graphic designer $25 an hour for 4 hours of work to do. And that's not even that much. But when I was making like $8 an hour, I was just like, wow, like, this person has skills that are allowing them to earn $25 an hour. That's a really big deal. So at that point, I went back to Memphis College of Art for about a year and a half to learn some sort of basic skills.
Yeah. And, I do think I always tell people who are just graduating from college, like, it might be a good idea to not go, if you are planning to go to graduate school or to do some post-college studying of some sort, it might be a good idea to not go straight away, like to wait and work a little bit, even if you're not exactly sure, whether you're working in the field you eventually want to be working in. Because during those years, you learn the value, like how hard it is to earn $1, and you learn about yourself and what you want to do. And I always feel so thankful for the years that I was in Teach for America in between college and graduate school, because by the time I came to graduate school, I knew exactly what I wanted to learn.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's important. So it sounds like for you, that was definitely the case. Like you knew exactly what you needed to be able to do what you wanted to do. So
yes.
Yeah, so that's cool. And then you, in 2005, you went to Surtex, which is the trade show for I guess for like the surface design industry. Am I describing that right? Okay, so you went to Surtex for the first time, and I wonder, what that experience was like. Did you feel like that was kind of a launching point for the next step?
I did. Yeah, definitely. It was really scary in 2005. There wasn't, like, you couldn't hardly find pictures of Surtex booths online. I remember like hanging up my artwork in the booth when I was there and still sort of thinking, I hope I'm in the right place. Like, I hope this is right. I just, there just wasn't as much information about surface design and art licensing back in 2005 as there is now. But yeah, it was a really great experience. It was the first time that I had showed my artwork, anywhere other than I made some little notebooks and was selling them at a local bookstore. So it was the first time I'd shown my artwork like that. And I got a lot of great feedback. And I showed at both the Surtex and the licensing show that year, and ended up signing with a licensing agent after the second show.
Okay. And so you had this agent, and then through, is it a woman?
Yes.
Okay. So through her, was that like what allowed you to get some of your first clients?
Absolutely, yes. So the thing about me, when I went to Surtex the first time, I had never walked the show. I had done as much research as I could online. I had bought all the books that I could about art licensing. But after the shows, when I was sitting there with a stack full of business cards and notes about what these people wanted, I didn't even really know the first thing about how to contact them, how to build those relationships. I knew nothing about contracts or negotiations or anything like that. So when I got an agent, it was like, like I really at that point like looked to someone else to help me with those things.
Yeah.
And so she knew all of it. She had been in licensing for like 20 years. It was a different type of licensing. She was mainly licensing characters and things like Holly Hobby, Star Wars characters, things like that. So it wasn't art licensing, but she knew enough about the business side of things that she was able to take care of that. I could just make the art. And then it was through her that I did get like the scrapbooking deals. We got Free Spirit while I was with her, and several other things, rugs and some different stuff like that.
Right. Okay. And so you were putting together, did you have to put together a portfolio for her to then shop around and kind of show the range of artwork that you were able to offer?
We did do that. She also was big on just targeted presentations. So the way we worked a lot of times was that she would, call me or email me and say, I found a company, really like what they do. Go online, check out their offerings, and then, put together a presentation for them. So I would gather the artwork, and we worked really closely side by side, and we would sort of go through the artwork together to help put a presentation together. And some of those were digital. Sometimes we did like kind of some really cool mailing type things to sort of get the attention of the art directors. But that was how we worked.
I see. And do you still work with her now?
No, I don't. We parted ways in 2009.
But it sounds like for many years that was a really good relationship. I mean, almost for you, sounds like it was like on the job training. Like she showed you how to put these things together, how to make a presentation, how to understand the contract, like what the rights were going to look like, and kind of got you in front of people. And I imagine that you probably took some of those experiences and skills forward with you even after, 2009.
Absolutely. I always think of it like as my art licensing boot camp. And I mean, we worked hard and, and fast. And I learned so much of everything that I know today from working with her.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I think that's kind of important to hear because sometimes people feel like, oh, I don't need an agent. I can kind of do this on my own. And that may be true. Or, like I don't want to pay the agent, out of the earnings that I get from the new contracts and that kind of thing, which that can also be true. But at the same time, sometimes those more traditional relationships are really good teachers for you professionally.
Definitely. It was a huge help for me. I didn't know. There's so much I didn't know. You don't even know how much you don't know until you're kind of in the middle of this and learning. So it was great for me.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I think that's important to hear. So I want to talk a little bit about your work itself before we kind of go forward into more current work that you're doing now. So tell us a little bit about sort of your process. I know you love to paint. And you are also very adept at making repeat patterns on the computer. So kind of how does a new design for a client or even for a coloring book, like how does that take place?
So I make art every single day. I wake up. It's like the first thing I want to do. My emails kind of get pushed to the side, and other like business things. I like to make art. I love it. I get so excited. I'm just like, it's the greatest thing in the world that I get to wake up every day and make art. I can almost cry telling you that because it's just so awesome. So every day I wake up, I start making art, and then I just like, I have a collection. So I do a lot of drawing, a lot of doodles. I do a lot of things on my iPad now, and I send those to Illustrator. And so I have a collection of a lot of little icons and little doodles and textures and things. And then when I sit down to do a different project, I sort of go through all of the art that I've been making each day. So, like when I made my first coloring book, I went through all of the art that I had in my portfolio up until the time that I made the coloring book, sort of looked back to see like what would be appropriate for that. And it's the same thing if I'm getting ideas together for a fabric collection. I sort of look at what I've done for the last 6 months, and then, kind of pick and choose and play and put something together. So I'm always creating.
Right. And I think that's neat that you are collecting too. It's like you're creating, not necessarily with, when you're doing kind of the drawings, the icons, the doodling and that kind of thing, not necessarily with an end project in mind, although maybe sometimes, but just to have that almost like a dictionary of visual options that are then there waiting for you to pull on and expand upon and, use for whatever the next project might be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, so you, so do any of those beginning drawings and things take place like with acrylic paint on canvas, or are you using like a micron pen on paper, or just a combination of different things?
So I do paint, and I've kept that a little separate than sort of the designs that I do, like for my fabrics and things like that. I also, I used to do, up until just a couple of years ago when I started using the iPad, I would draw on paper with the micron pens. And then I would scan those in and clean them up. That's how, just to have sort of the hand-drawn look so that everything doesn't look digital in my artwork. Since I got an iPad and started working on that, I just pretty much draw on the iPad, and then I can send things directly to Illustrator, and they are in vector form already. They're very clean and smooth, and I don't have to do as much work to make them look as nice.
Okay. And so you like Adobe Sketch and Adobe Draw on the iPad Pro.
Yes.
and you use the Apple Pencil. So just tell people who maybe have never experimented with some of these mobile apps for drawing, what is so appealing to you about them that it sounds like they've almost like essentially replaced kind of traditional art materials for you?
Well, yeah, they have. So I did a lot of artwork just that started in Illustrator, and that was the primary thing that I did, when I started through 2010. It had a very Illustrator-ish look. When I started, that was what art directors wanted. Everyone was like, wow, this clean, crisp, perfect, artwork, everyone like really, really liked it. But over the years, people got tired of sort of the clinical look of Adobe Illustrator and really they wanted to see the hand of the artist. So I had all of these skills in Illustrator, but I knew that I really needed to bring just my own hand into it, so things didn't look just computer generated. So that was when I got my first iPad. I guess I didn't get it until the end of 2013, but I immediately started playing in Adobe Ideas, which is now Adobe Draw. And that is a program where you can draw with your pen or your stylus or whatever, and then you send that artwork directly to Illustrator, and it is in vector form. So then I can, play around with it. I do a lot of little doodles, I do textures and things, and it's all kind of ready for me to go in the computer. There are so many different options, so many different things that you can do that, like with Adobe Capture is another one too, that allows you to like capture shapes out in the world and use those in your artwork. But I really like to use these. It kind of opened up a whole new section of my brain to different possibilities with art. And it all started with the tools. Like when I go to play in Adobe Sketch, I rarely have anything in mind. I just let the tools sort of inform the artwork, and something amazing always happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's neat. Yeah, and sometimes I feel like when you do get a new tool, it opens up an idea, like a whole set of capabilities for you that then allow you to make new things, and before you had that tool, that just wasn't even an option. So sometimes getting the new tool is the key to the next step.
Yes, absolutely. It's like your brain doesn't even know that these things are possible. So, the tool, and just started playing with it. And it's, and I said I like to make art every day. A lot of it is just, opening up my iPad and sort of playing around. What can I do? Like, what different things can I do on here? So, that has really changed the look of my work.
I want to pause things for a moment to talk about our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by the Meriwether Council's Etsy training course. Designed specifically to address the common mistakes and concerns associated with selling on Etsy, this course will guide you through each section of your shop and explain how to best optimize it. This course is made up of 22 on-screen video trainings that are succinct, effective, and easy to follow. If you ever wished you could sit down with someone who has been successful on Etsy and have them tell you exactly what they've done and how you can do it too, then this course is for you. It feels like sitting down with a friend who will teach you everything she knows, but you'll be able to replay it or reread it as many times as you need. You'll gain priceless insights regarding buyer behavior, visual branding, navigation, and SEO, all specific to Etsy. Learn the exact things you need to do in your shop to get more traffic, exposure, and sales. Plus, learn the common mistakes Etsy sellers make, how to avoid them, and what to do instead. This course includes technical how-tos, mini shop critiques, and lessons that will guide you through how to make the most of key areas in your own Etsy shop. Etsy is the most powerful tool available to handmade sellers, and you'll learn exactly how to optimize your presence there and set your shop up for increased visibility, opportunities, and sales. Your shop can work hard for you every day to inform and capture your audience and keep them looking longer. Meriwether Council's Etsy training course will show you how to make it happen. For more information or to enroll, visit meriwethercouncil.com. And now back to my conversation with Jenean. So let's talk a little little bit about these coloring books because, my goodness, this has been quite something that has happened to you or that you created, let's say. So in 2012, you found like an old coloring book or came across like an old 1970s coloring book. What was that book?
It was Ruth Heller was the designer, and I can't remember the name, but it was a Dover coloring book.
Okay, so it was like a designy kind of coloring book?
Yes, it was design based. And I remember loving it as a kid. Like, I was not into the princesses and the cows or the farm scenes or anything like that. I really loved the design based coloring books. It was so unique, and there were no rules. I could put the colors wherever I wanted to put them, as opposed to, if you're coloring a scene, you might have to make the grass green and the sky blue, and what fun was that?
Right.
So with the design-based coloring books, there were also back in the 70s these doodle art posters that I used to get and color. So I have great memories of that from when I was a child.
Okay, right. So you refound this again, and stumbled upon it, and thought, okay, I can do this. And so you spent 3 weeks kind of going through your artwork library of things that you had made and created, and put together this coloring book. And did you even know that it was going to be an adult coloring book, or did you just sort of think of it as a coloring book?
I thought of it as a coloring book. I didn't think of it as a coloring book for kids because I included a lot of intricate spaces, but I also didn't I didn't call it an adult coloring book. It was just a coloring book, but I always mentioned in my marketing that it was geared toward older kids. And adults, because the spaces were a little more intricate than they would be in like a child's coloring book.
Okay, right. So this was not, this was before the craze, right? Like this was before the coloring book craze, which is kind of amazing. So you had this, you spent 3 weeks, you put it together, and then you put it up on Amazon's Create Space, which is Amazon's print on demand service. So you kind of create the file, you upload it, Amazon has it, and then when someone places an order, Amazon prints the order and Amazon fulfills the order. So again, we're back to this idea of passive income. You're not having thousands of books printed and shipped to you and you're storing them in your garage. That's not how this is working. This is self-publishing that's print on demand and fulfilled by Amazon. So why did you choose to do that versus, say, you had an agent, you kind of knew a lot about pitching. It sounds like you'd, become pretty good at pitching. So why not just take the idea and try to pitch it to one of the companies or to a traditional publisher?
Well, so there were a couple of reasons. One, when you have an idea and you're just like so excited, you can't even stand it. I was so excited about this idea that I wanted it to happen like then. I was really excited. I was like, I can do this. I have the skills to do this. I can put together a really big book. I didn't want to, I've had so much experience with, once I was no longer with my agent, I continued to approach licensing partners. And so much of it is there's a lot of rejection and there is a lot of non-response. So when I thought about, pitching the book, at the time I thought about Dover because they were one of the only companies that I knew that was doing coloring books at the time. And I didn't really know who else to pitch to. But when I thought about it, I thought, I don't want to send out a pitch and just wait and see if someone gets back to me. I want to make this coloring book and have it available. And when I learned about Create Space and learned that I could actually do it with no investment other than my time and the shipping costs for my first proof, which I chose rush shipping because I was so excited. So it cost me a little more than it would, but it was like an $18 investment, I think, for the copies of the book cost $2.15 and then plus the rush shipping. So I was able to get it and, I was just, really excited about it. I got to set my own price. I loved this idea of Amazon taking care of all the orders and shipping them. I didn't have to order, 1,000 coloring books and have them sitting in my studio, hoping to sell them. So when I learned about Create Space, I just thought this is this is perfect.
Right. Okay. So, so you got your proof and you paid for the rush shipping, very excited. And you have this, $18 investment or whatever, very, very inexpensive, under $100 altogether to get the whole thing up and running, maybe under 50. Okay. So, and then you put the book up and, was that the first one? Was that the flower designs, or was that a different one? The first one.
The first one was a pattern and design coloring book.
Okay, so it was a pattern. Okay, great. And then what happened? I mean, was it one of these things where you put it up and then oh my gosh, like I can't believe how many have sold, or was it kind of like a couple sold and it took more, it took a while to take off? Like what was the initial reaction?
Well, I should go back and check precisely, but if memory serves, I definitely sold a few right away. I priced the book at $12, which gave me a royalty of $5.05 per book. And I remember that first month getting really excited, just thinking, wow, if I can't remember exactly how many I sold. But I remember thinking, wow, if I could do this every month, that's like good extra income. And I think the first month was, just because the newness of it and the excitement. And I had shared it with my followers on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. I think my first month was actually better than the second month. I think there was a slight dip in the second month, but then the sales just grew and grew and grew.
And so
they grew steadily.
Did it help? Because I know you released many more titles. I think you have maybe 7 or 8 of them, maybe more out now. And, some of these took longer because you didn't have as much kind of, pre-made artwork to pull from. So they might have been more than a 3-week, investment of time. But did it help to have more than one title available as far as overall sales?
Definitely. Yeah. For the first 3 books that I did, my sales started doubling every time I released a new book. I released volume 2, I think, about 6 months after I had released volume 1, and I started getting twice as many sales. And then I released a mandala book, almost a year after I had released the first one. And again, like the sales just like doubled again. Part of that was because we were getting a little closer to the time when the trend was going to happen. Like there was more and more interest, but also it's easier for your books to be found on Amazon if you have more than one.
Mm-hmm. And I think that actually holds true on other marketplaces as well. At least I don't know, how much experience you have on Etsy, if any, but I think on Etsy, in my experience, that's also true. Like if you have one item listed, if you end up having 3, you're going to sell more of that one than if you just had one. Yes. I think it's something to do with consumer confidence or search or both, but.
And then the people who bought the first one maybe come back for the second or the third one. So there was sort of like a place for repeat customers to go.
Right. Okay. So you're getting $5.05 royalty on this $12 coloring book. And I know you didn't try for a traditional publisher, but do you have any inkling of what that would have looked like? Like, let's say Dover had picked it up or whatever, and you had a royalty agreement with them. What would that royalty percent, or what would that royalty amount have looked like?
I don't know. I have a little bit of experience with traditional publishing now, only because we've done these deals with foreign publishers. But it seems like, maybe 50 cents to $1 per book might be about right. I'm not sure on that.
Right. Okay. So
I think and I have no idea about Dover, but I had actually heard that I'm not sure that they even pay royalties. They may just pay a flat rate.
Yeah, I think you're probably right with Dover, but maybe with Chronicle or, a different publisher that you would have a royalty agreement with, perhaps.
That I can say about it is that that $5.05 is a 42% royalty. So I'm, the royalties I'm getting on my foreign books are 6, 7, 8%, maybe up to 10% if we sell a whole lot. So the royalty at CreateSpace is just much higher.
Right. Okay. And I hope you don't mind me saying this. I only am going to say it because I read it on Tech Insider. So I feel like it's been out there on this gigantic website. And so it's not like private information. So I hope that's okay. But It said in this article that they wrote about you sort of celebrating your success and the adult coloring book craze and self-publishing, that you had sold at that time, which was I think last year, 91,000 copies and made nearly $500,000 on the coloring books.
Yes.
And that's amazing.
I know.
You're like the Amazon Create Space success. I mean, there's more than one, but you are an Amazon Create Space major success story.
Yes. Yeah. It went so much further than I ever imagined.
Yeah. Okay. So you have these books there. I'm imagining, you mentioned that you shared them with your Instagram followers. And I know that you also did some press outreach. So I want to talk a little bit about marketing, because one of the things that you supposedly get when you work with a traditional publisher is their marketing prowess. Now, whether that's actually true in this day and age with print publishing is debatable, but when you do it on your own, for sure, you're doing the marketing on your own. So can you talk a little bit about the strategy you used or the efforts that you put into what was particularly effective and how it developed over time to get the word out about these coloring books?
So in the beginning, like I said, I marketed to Instagram and Facebook followers. Those were mainly people that I knew from the sewing and quilting world from being a fabric designer for Free Spirit. So I remember at the first quilt market, like I released my book in August of 2012. I did a schoolhouse in October at that quilt market, and I gave away copies of my coloring book to everyone who attended the schoolhouse. So that was sort of my first outreach to just try to get it in as many hands as possible. One good thing about working with CreateSpace is that you can order copies. They're $2.15 each, and there's no minimum on those orders. So I don't, have to order 1,000 copies. I could just order 50. But the fact that they're just $2 for me made it a really nice price point to be able to give away and, put in other people's hands.
And I just want to interrupt for 1 second, which is to say that if you have a schoolhouse, that means you have a booth, right? Because Quilt Market doesn't give you a schoolhouse, doesn't allow you to have a schoolhouse unless you have a booth. Is that so? I think I'm right on that. So that means that you also had a booth at Market. Or did you have a booth because you had Free Spirit? Maybe that's why.
So I had booths in 2010 and 2011, but I think that the schoolhouse was just done through Free Spirit.
Okay, got it. Okay, because I was just going to say, like, if somebody were to do this and didn't have Free Spirit, didn't have a contract with an existing company that had a booth, to do the schoolhouse, you would need to fund the booth. But it sounds like funding the booth and doing the schoolhouse and paying for the giveaway copies was really well worth the money, because it's a great sort of gift item for a quilt shop.
Definitely. Yeah. And it just, it suddenly, all these people knew that I was doing a coloring book, because you can only, reach so far with certain ways of marketing. So this sort of brought it to a whole nice new group of people, and people were really excited about it because at the time, no one else was really doing coloring books. So I got a lot of great feedback on it, and I think, got a lot of new fans and followers because of that.
Okay. So that was one big push. Tell me about some other pushes, whether it was reaching out to the media or other things that you did to kind of get the word out.
That I did actively reach out to the press on a regular basis. I researched writers. That article in Tech Insider that you mentioned, I pitched the article to that writer. I spent the 2015 just really reaching out and trying to connect with people and develop those relationships with the press.
I would love to hear just a little bit more about that, because I think that's something that a lot of people are afraid to do, to reach out to the press, kind of feeling like maybe they should just be kind of plucked and written about. But you can actively reach out to the press and do well. And I mean, that Tech Insider article, I think, did really well. And I know I read it right when it came out, and it was shared a ton online, and I'm sure really helped with sales, among many other articles that you, if you go to like the press section of your website, you've got a long list there of coverage. And so can you just talk a little bit about, like, what does that mean, reach out to the press? Like, what does that really look like?
So I just started researching people who had written about coloring books at all. And there was a lot of articles in different papers and things, people who had written, reporters and people at like BuzzFeed and other places who had written about coloring books. And I started, offering to send them a book for review. I got mentioned twice in the LA Times because I wrote to this awesome writer that I love, Carolyn Kellogg, and I sent a couple of copies of my books to her, and she ended up mentioning them in 2 articles, which is just so amazing. I researched people, I followed them on Twitter, I looked to see what they were writing about, and then I just wrote a letter that said, here's what I'm doing. These are my books, and if you're interested in talking about them, I'm available. It was usually a very short note. At the beginning of the year, my pitches were sort of long and drawn out. Toward the end of the year, they were very concise and just simple. And I think that is why, the article in Tech Insider came out in December. That was, I had sort of perfected my pitch over the course of the year. But people aren't just going to find you if you do something great. Like you have to tell them. It's not just going to happen. You're not just going to sit there in your studio and you're doing this great thing, or you're, having success in self-publishing. No one's going to know that except for you and your family, unless you reach out to people and tell them. And I was really excited and proud of what I was doing with the books. It was, something that I wanted to share, and I was hoping it would encourage other people with self-publishing. So I reached out, with that story, and ended up getting like lots of good coverage.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind, well, 2 things come to mind. One is that people who work at these publications, especially internet-based publications that publish daily and sometimes many times in each day, they need stories. They really do. They need human interest stories. They need good stories. They need visual stories. And so if you come to them with a good story, they're excited. Like, they're happy to get it because they have deadlines. They need stories. So that's number one. And the other thing is that you mentioned Twitter. And I think a lot of times people who are kind of in the visual field kind of, love Instagram, people who are artists, crafters, fabric designers, quilters, etc. We love Instagram. We love blogs. We love, that kind of visual sharing. And sort of Twitter kind of, doesn't really have a lot of that. And so people sort of feel like, what do I need Twitter for? But what you said about developing relationships with reporters, with media outlets, following what they're doing, and seeing who they are and who the right person at that publication might be to cover you. For example, Twitter is so good for that. Yeah, that is how I use Twitter all the time. I mean, that's what Twitter is great for.
Yes.
Just like I follow, I'm very interested in Etsy, for example, as a company. I follow like all kinds of people who work at Etsy. There's like hundreds of people who work there, and they all are on Twitter. And so just seeing like what it's like, for the people who run like the user experience, division at Etsy, and like who they are and what they're working on and that kind of thing. That's what Twitter is for. So it's for kind of like the businessy side, the press side. And it's not going to have all that visual stuff, but it is going to help you connect with the people who you need for a certain area of your business.
Yeah, and it lets them know that like you're paying attention, you're there. I mean, I remember when I wrote the reporter at the LA Times, like she had just gotten this orange cat, and she was sharing about her cat on Twitter. So I made a comment at the end of my thing, the orange cats are the best, which they are, and just sort of letting her know that I'm here and I'm paying attention, and I'm not just someone who pulled her name out of a directory and wrote to her that morning. Like, I've been following along with her journey and reading her stories. So right. I think that is really important.
Right. Because they're doing creative work too, know? And writers, besides wanting stories, want readers. And so knowing you're a reader, it means a lot.
I just continued. Probably the thing that I think sells coloring books better than anything else is when people see a beautifully colored coloring book page. So I steadily colored the coloring book pages. Like, I've been coloring now pretty steadily for the last 4 years. I would color those and again share those on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. People love to see that. When I first got my books, or first published the books, Amazon allowed the authors to upload photos. So I would upload a ton of photos of colored pages to the book pages. They don't allow you to do that now. So one of the things I do now when releasing a book is that I, ask if anyone would like a copy for a fair and honest review, and I send out books. I think I did, probably on my most recent book, like 25 or 30 copies that I had sent out and just asked people to do reviews. And then if they color any pages, to include those in the review, because it just really makes a big difference. And then starting in 2000, so a lot of the books sold on Amazon when there weren't a lot of other books up there. There wasn't a lot of competition. People sort of organically found my books on Amazon. So a lot of it wasn't necessarily, back in 2013 and 2014, me going to the press or doing anything like that. They just, found the books on Amazon, which is kind of a weird thing to say. But popularity in coloring books was starting to grow at that point. You were seeing more and more publishers start to put some out between late 2013 and then 2014. So it was starting to become a thing, and my books were available on Amazon. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. So, part of this is that you were there when the trend took off. And that's just something that maybe people can't, it's almost like, oh, I'm going to create a viral video. Well, you can't really do that. You can create a great video and you can put it up and you can do your best to share it. But in the end, whether it goes viral or not isn't really under your control necessarily. Even if you've got all the elements that make something go viral, it may not. And so who knew that this was going to become a craze? There was no way to know, but because it did, and because you were there, you got to ride it.
Yes. So that was a lot of it, just getting in early and having my books there. So the main success that happened for me happened in 2015 with the books. Starting in about March, the coloring book trend started taking off. And it took everyone by surprise. It took me by surprise. It took traditional publishers by surprise. Suddenly, everyone wanted coloring books. And Joanna Bassford's coloring book, Secret Garden, sold out on Amazon immediately. And I think it stayed sold out for months on Amazon. Most of the other books that were printed by traditional publishers, they also sold out because they just didn't have that many in stock. So this really made a great path or a lane for my book because it was printed on demand. It was always available and it never went out of stock. So when this trend happened and people wanted to color, they wanted to color right then, they ordered some of the books that were out of stock, but at the same time, they ordered my book. It was in stock. It had hundreds of reviews at that point already. So that allowed it to climb. That is when it climbed to number 16 on the Amazon charts and stayed there in the top 100 for about 8 weeks.
Right.
It was really the fact that it was there. There was no way that it could sell out. Those are the things that helped. And it was a really good book. It was my flower designs book. It was the 4th book I had done. It was my best book by far. I felt like I really had found my groove for that one. And so that is really how things sort of opened up for that book.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's good to hear. It's it's interesting to see that the print on demand piece of it actually was hugely in your favor because it could never sell out. So, let's talk a little bit about reviews. So anyone who's written a book, and, had it for sale on Amazon knows about Amazon reviews. And Amazon reviews are a huge feature of what brings people to Amazon to shop because they want to know what other people have thought of the product. I look at Amazon reviews before I buy almost anything online. And so they're very important. And I wanted to hear a little bit about how you encourage people to leave reviews if you did, and then how you sort of think about negative reviews, because there's always going to be negative reviews. That's just part of it.
So I encouraged people. I had a little note in the back of my book saying, if you like the book, please leave a review on Amazon. I may have worded it a little more fairly than that, give me feedback on Amazon or something, not just leave a review if you like it. But obviously I like the positive reviews better. So I always encouraged people to leave reviews, and I always let people know how important it is to me as an author. It does make a difference. I also could read the reviews with, even if there was something that people weren't crazy about, I could read the reviews and maybe learn from that. So I encouraged people to leave me a review and let me know what they thought about the books. The negative reviews, it's interesting. I think that, my book, the Flower Designs book, was on Amazon for a year with only 4 and 5-star reviews. And the minute it started moving up the charts, maybe it just got in the hands of more people, or maybe it was something else. But I didn't start getting any negative reviews until it started getting really popular. And those were very hard to take. I wasn't sure, they were hard to take. Some of them were just mean. I mean, I'll never forget someone just saying, they left a comment that said, this book is terrible. It's really ugly. And I just thought, ugly, but I knew it wasn't ugly. It's not an ugly book. But it, those kind of hurt, and they affect sales. So Amazon shows, in the right-hand column on the book page, you see the most recent reviews. And I could see a 1-star and 2-star review start to affect the sales. When you're on CreateSpace, you can see your sales daily. So you see what is happening. You can basically see them hourly. You can see the sales as they're coming in, and I could sort of see my sales rank and things fall a little bit because of these bad reviews. So it's hurtful, and it's also, damaging to the sales.
Yeah. And it's hard to take. I mean,
it's hard.
It's one thing. I mean, I know you had talked earlier about pitching and about rejections, that a lot of the times, and I read in another interview that I read with you, that you said for every company, and this is talking about pitching, artwork to companies for surface design, for every company that says yes, there are between 50 and 100 who say no. And so I know that you had gone through that process in the past. You had been rejected, or even if it wasn't a no, it was just silence, which is so hard to take, right? The silence of I never heard back, and so it wasn't as though you are, new to putting your work out there and having people not like it or not want it for whatever reason. But the Amazon reviews are a different animal because they just sit there, you can't take them down. They're just going to sit there, and they do affect sales.
And they do. And I will say I've developed a much thicker skin because of it. The first few just crushed me. I was just oh no, that's so hurtful. And those are awful things to say about my coloring book. But then, I just kind of started to where it's well, that's one person's opinion. I'm just going to take it with a grain of salt. And then I'm sure that at some point, someone else is going to come along and leave a glowing review right behind it. So
yeah, absolutely. And when I published my second book, Stuffed Animals, I had this amazing editor, and I have 80 something review, with a 5-star average on that book. But there are a couple negative reviews. And, the first one that came in, I sent to my editor. I'm what do we do? What do we do about this? And he just sent me this little, image back, a little meme image of a panda. And it just said, haters gonna hate. What are you gonna do? He just had the best attitude. And I was okay, you're right. It is what it is. So yeah, you develop a thick skin, and that's super important in life in general. So, okay. So that's cool. And now when you have, the books are published by traditional publishers overseas, and are you working with an agent for those?
Yes, I am. So starting in 2014, I started getting inquiries from both France and South Korean literary agents. And I didn't really know what to do with them at the time. But the inquiries that came in from France, they were with a company called Mirabeau. And they were very serious. They were very interested in the books. They actually liked 4 of the books that I had published, or those are all 4 that I had at that time. They were really, searching for content. So I sort of just stalled them. I didn't even know what to do. I thought this is kind of over my head a little bit. But I ended up contacting Suzanne Woods. because I knew she had she had book experience, and I had known her through Quilt Market. So she walked me through the first deal that I had with the French publisher, and that was for 4 books. And she just very kindly helped me free of charge to, go through all the paperwork. She looked over the contract. She helped me with my communication with them. It was just awesome. But more and more books started coming in, or requests started coming in, especially as soon as the books were published in France. I started getting a lot of interest from other European countries. And I didn't want to keep going to Suzanne and asking her to do this for free. So I ended up reaching out to Kate McKean. And she's with Moorham Literary in Brooklyn. And so she and her co-agent, her foreign co-agent, handle all the foreign rights now, which is awesome.
Yeah. Okay, great. I thought that was important. And I think I knew that because I saw Kate a few months ago, and I think I had just booked you for the podcast, which was a long time ago. I booked these things very far in advance. People will be surprised. And I told her that you were coming on the show, and she was like, "Oh, I'm managing her foreign rights now." So I was like, "Oh, that's great," because Kate's great. So.
Yeah, she's been so great to work with. It's like having that person there that can take care of things, that knows what they're talking about. She makes sure, we haven't assigned rights to different places that we shouldn't have. And she's also a really great, she gives me a great insight to the publishing world.
Mm-hmm. Again, a lot of sort of on the job training, I think that there's a lot of benefit. I mean, clearly a lot of benefit for you in doing this yourself, and publishing these books yourself. But you also had many years of experience kind of working in a more traditional way behind you. And then even when, the foreign rights issues started to crop up, you again worked with somebody who could work in a more traditional way. And so there's a lot to be learned from both approaches.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And so my last question before I wanted to get to your recommendations, because you've got some great ones, is about kind of what you do next. I mean, I feel like sometimes when you have something that's wildly successful, I know in my own experience this is true, you're riding this wave. It's amazing. It's incredibly exciting. The hard thing then, though, is to do the next thing, right? Because not everything you do is going to be so wildly successful. That's impossible, And so you have to keep going, though, right? You have to, and it sounds like you're very driven internally just to make art and to enjoy that process. But as far as thinking about profitability and thinking about products and all of that, has it been at all a struggle to keep going and to move on and do sort of the next thing that might not be part of a national publishing craze,
Well, yes, definitely. It's it's hard anytime I was with Free Spirit as a fabric designer for I guess about 7 years, and my contract ended with them in, I think, March of 2015. But the whole time that I was with them, I was thinking fabrics, that's what I'm about, that's what I do, and that's who I am. And when that contract ended, I was just like, who am I? And then that is right at the moment that the coloring books started taking off. And I was like, okay, well, I make coloring books, and this is awesome, and this is where I'm going, and this is sort of my focus for now. It's been in the back of my mind, obviously I want to do more coloring books, but it is something that you don't know how long that is going to be around, and the things on Amazon have changed dramatically in since I published mine in 2012. So my sales on Amazon aren't nearly as good, even as they were in 2014 before the craze hit. There's just been a lot of changes. There's a lot of there's a lot of things that are a little bit frustrating that are happening over there, but so that has sort of, that has changed. But I think that, I think people love creative activities. They like to be creative themselves. So now that I've experienced this success with self-publishing and being able to make that connection with all of these people who have my books, it has really inspired me to be thinking about, what is the next place that where will people want to focus their creative energies next? And can I sort of be on the forefront of that? So I, have a lot of ideas. I brainstorm quite a bit. I share a lot of them with Kate, to see if she's interested in pitching them, because we actually did pitch a book to traditional publishers last year. We got a great offer, but the timing was kind of bad. So I'm still thinking about publishing. Like, that is something that I think after having this experience will always sort of be on my mind. And then the rest of it is, I usually have deadlines. I have things going on. I just exhibited at Certex again this year for the first time since 2005. And so I've been following up on leads with that. I have some fun things happening at toward the end of the year. I'm going to go to Adobe Max, which is Adobe's conference that they have every year. It's in San Diego this year, and they are for one thing, I'm getting to design the artwork on the tote bags that they're going to give out to all of their 9,000 attendees, which is
wow.
Yeah. But they're also, for the first time at Adobe Max, having something called the Max Marketplace, where they're inviting artists to set up tables and sell their wares to attendees. And so I'm going to participate in that. So that has really got me thinking about, new product offerings and things that I might want to share when I'm at that show. So I'm still thinking about these things, but it is something like when you said, you wonder if I've had this great success with the coloring books, like, will there be, a success like that in the future? It's definitely something that I think about, but I kind of think about it not in a necessarily a scared way of like, can I do that again? I think about it more like, I did this, like, and it's encouraging, like, like I have the power to do it again.
Right. Absolutely. And especially because you did it in a way that wasn't dependent on someone else. Yes. It gives you that feeling like I did it all under my own energy and my own auspices, and I can do it again. And I think that there's nothing that gives you more, nothing's more motivating than that success. There's no boost better than that boost. So definitely. Awesome. Okay. So I wanted to get to a few of your recommendations. And the first one that you wanted to recommend was Amy Fleury's recipe for press and pitch kits, which seems really apropos to what we were just talking about.
Yes. She's awesome. She does some videos, and she has a couple of books that talk about reaching out to the press. Right now in June and July is when a lot of the print magazines are looking for things for their holiday gift guides. So she always puts out, I think she just put one out a couple of weeks ago that has like all of the contacts in it for the different magazines. I usually go pick up the magazines myself and like verify that they're there. But she shows you a really simple way to pitch, to kind of tells you how to do a subject line, what to include, and how to approach these people. Because at the end of the year, when these gift guides come out, like, it's really important to be a part of that. She also kind of gives you a guide of just reaching out to the press in general to share your story and stuff like that. So it's really awesome.
Okay, super. We will link to that in the show notes, because I think that's something that a lot of people need and want to do and have as a goal, especially, as you said, in the summer, trying to get into the holiday gift guide. So that's awesome. And I actually have not followed her before. So thank you for the recommendation on a personal level.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's really important. Like, if you can get in the right magazines or the right newspapers or the right online publications, it can take your work so far beyond, for someone like me, I've got, 9,000 followers on Instagram, but these things are going to, homes and computers like all over the world. So it's a huge, a big leap as far as like sharing your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You always want to be thinking about those partnerships and sort of trying to reach people who may not be sitting and scrolling through Instagram, which is, a lot of people. So yeah, absolutely. So, and then you wanted, I know you're kind of a fan of online learning, that you had taken some classes on Illustrator from on lynda.com, and I'm a fan of lynda.com. Also, I learned how to edit my podcast by taking a class on lynda.com. But you also recommend Skillshare as a place to do some online learning to develop some new skills.
Yeah, I think I mentioned in my recommendations, like I've taken a lot of e-courses, some that take a lot of time or maybe have multiple assignments and last weeks. With Skillshare, I can just jump right in and maybe learn a new skill in 20 minutes sometimes, or learn a new graphic design technique, or learn something about typography that I didn't know before. And I think it's so great just to be able to get that information and then immediately use it. And there are, it covers everything from marketing to design, just, anything that you would kind of want to know. And so many of the instructors are just like world-class professionals at what they do, sharing their information. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And is there one that you would recommend, especially that you just loved and learned, a really usable skill from?
Well, I was asked to do a poster for a local festival here in Memphis, and I've never designed posters before. So I, went on to Skillshare and I took this just really cool class from Ellen Lupton, who is a curator for the Cooper Hewitt, who I'd actually met when we were there for that thing that you mentioned in the intro. But it was poster design. It sort of walked through poster design from beginning until now. And, you can look at things or you can pick up a book or something, but sometimes just having someone like kind of explain, this is why it works, this is why something might not work if it were done in this way is so helpful. So that's one of the most recent ones that I've taken and just loved it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And I took a class on MailChimp taught by MailChimp. It was on Skillshare and it was terrific for me. So I recommend it for all different kinds of things. That's super. Okay. And you have one more, which I would be totally remiss if we didn't get to, because it's about naps, and the name of my blog and my show is based on napping. So, and you were saying that, you for a long time felt like you could not take a nap during the workday because, like, how lazy is that? But now you've sort of embraced it and love it. And I feel the same way.
I was having a conversation the other day and I said something about, I just woke up from a nap, and it was with like a professional. And I was like, I can't believe I just said that. I started taking them like every day. I used to like grab a Diet Coke or try to take a walk around the block or do some jumping jacks to sort of fight that afternoon sluggishness. And now it's like, no, like I'm going to take a little nap. It doesn't mean anything. It usually lasts 15 or 20 minutes. And after taking it, I am so refreshed. It feels like I've slept an entire night. It's
Absolutely.
amazing.
And I feel like, why is this so shameful in the workplace? Like, I mean, I used to work, at a nonprofit, and I had a traditional 9 to 5 hours in an office cubicle. And it's like, you're allowed to take a 10 to 15 minute break, right? Like, you're allowed to go, as you said, walk around the block, go to Diet Coke, go talk with a colleague. But God forbid you should like go unconscious for 15 minutes. But you know what? Doing that is way more effective than any of those other strategies.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I swear by them now.
Agreed. Okay, people, we got to get COTS in workplaces because it's really good. It is. So, Jenean, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the While She Naps podcast. I so enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. I loved it so much.
Oh, good. So if people want to catch up with you online, is the best place on Instagram if they want to kind of like send you a message?
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's just Jenean Morrison?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I will link to that as well. And you've been listening to the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Visit my blog, walshynaps.com, where you can sign up for my email newsletter to get the best in sewing and blogging and small business delivered right to your inbox each week. And thank you to today's sponsor, the Meriwether Council. Today's episode is sponsored by the Meriwether Council's Etsy training course, a video training series that teaches Etsy sellers the exact steps to a more visible, profitable, and enjoyable Etsy experience. For more information, visit meriwethercouncil.com. And if you enjoy the show, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.